Hello, I'm Kerr. Welcome to my art studio. This week we're going to have a look at cleaning watercolour brushes, because there are some things that you may be doing that are actually not very good for your brushes. I'll also give you some ideas about how you can protect your brushes when you're travelling. So, are you ready? Most brushes are made with wooden handles, a metal ferrule, and they have the little hairs at the end. Now, before I show you how to clean brushes, let me show you a couple of no-nos. And one of those is never leave your brush sitting in the water like that, because water will creep up into the ferrule and into the wood, and eventually, if the wood is constantly wet, it will rot the handle. So never ever leave your brushes sitting in water. And another no-no is when you have cleaned your brush, do not put them like that, because the water that's in the hairs, even though you may have got rid of most of the water that's in the hairs will run down into the ferrule and into the wooden handle, and it'll sit there and it will eventually rot the handle. So that's why sometimes if you pick up an old brush and you find it's wobbly, it's probably because it's been left to dry like that. It's the worst thing you can possibly do. In a minute, when we've cleaned some brushes, I'll show you how to lay your brush out so that it dries nicely and there is no danger of it actually hurting the handle. So, how do we clean brushes? Well, watercolour is such a gentle medium that most of the time all you need to do is swish your brush around in the water and it's done. But once or twice, maybe, I don't know, a couple of times a year, you want to give them a bit of a spring clean. And this is how you do it. This is a piece of mild soap. One of the best things to use is actually baby soap. If it's good enough for the baby, it's good enough for the brushes. So if you make your brush damp and then just stroke it onto the soap, and use your hand. You can do it on a palette if you want to, but I just use my hand and just work the brush into your hand, up and down, up and down, up and down. Try not to do twisting the point around like this, because the point of your brush is the first thing that wears out. So if you can do it with the flat of the brush, until the soap is clean. You will see some paint coming off because the paint collects here up near the ferrule. And then just wash it off again. Wash my hand off. And then do it again. Stroke it onto the soap. As I said, any mild soap will do. I think this is a piece of a block of baby soap. And as soon as that is coming clear, you know that your brush is perfectly clean. As I said, you don't need to do this very often. Once or twice a year is probably absolutely fine. Now, people say, can you do that with a natural hairbrush? Yes, of course you can. Animal hair is surprisingly strong. It's not as delicate as you think it is. If it was, all the animals in the world would be running around with bald patches on them. So animal hair is actually incredibly strong. Obviously, you've got to be reasonably careful with it, but you can do exactly the same thing with a natural hairbrush as you can with a synthetic hairbrush. As I said before, try not to use the point, because that is the first thing that wears out on a brush. This is not going to hurt the brush in the slightest. There's a little bit of pink paint coming off there. Can you see it? So rinse that off, wipe that off my hand, a little bit more of the soap, and just tap it up and down. And that's coming clear now. And that's all you need to do. But do make sure you really wash the soap out of your brush. I've got a container here that's got 2 sections in it. When I'm painting, I use one for dirty water and one for clean water. So when I'm cleaning my brushes, I use one side to wash the soap off, and then the other side for a lovely clean rinse. Or even better, you could go and hold it under the tap. Hold it under a running tap. Now, when you've cleaned your brushes, it is very important to reshape them. So you just stroke the hairs until everything comes back to a lovely point. Because if you leave them with all the hairs separated, that's the way it will dry. You want it to dry with a lovely point. So just turn your brush around and gently stroke the hairs to a lovely point, and do not let them dry like that. It's the worst thing you can do. What do? Let me show you. Here I've got a piece of board and an old towel. So what I do is I lay my brushes on the towel, and then I just pop something underneath to raise the other end so that the brushes are sloping down this way. So all the water that's in the hairs of my brush are going to be draining this way, not back into the handle and rot the handle. So either dry your brushes completely flat on the table like that, which is absolutely fine, or even better, put them on a gentle slope so that the water can drain away from the handle. You could, of course, hang your brushes vertically. I've seen the most wonderful inventions for doing just that. I did say that you must never let your brushes dry in an upright position like that. However, once they have dried, whether you're drying them on the flat or whether you're doing them on a little piece of toweling like I did, once they have dried, there's nothing to stop you having them all in a container like that, because there's no water left to run down and damage the handle. So yes, you can store them like that, but not until they've dried. People ask about these little plastic covers that you'll find on your brush when you first buy them. Now, there's different ideas about this. If you try and put your brush back into that little plastic container, you will open the hairs up, and you might even cut some of the hairs off as you're trying to push it on. What some people do is they cut the container down the side and they lay their brush in it, and then the container comes up around the sides and protects the brush. Well, you'll have big long sharp edges here if you cut this, and the chance of it actually scraping against and cutting the hairs of your brush, the chances are quite high. So I think the best place for that is in the bin. You may not agree with me, and that's fine, but I would never ever try and get my brushes back into that little container. But that's just me. Let's just go back and look at the soap for a moment. This is just ordinary, very mild soap. It's actually baby soap, but any mild hand soap will do. You can buy little containers of brush cleaning soap, and they're absolutely fine. But this works just as well, and it's a lot cheaper. If you do use one of those little containers with brush cleaning soap in, be a little bit careful, they do vary. Some of them have a little slightly gritty surface to them, which is great for cleaning things like oil painting brushes or acrylic brushes, but it may not be quite as good on your softer watercolour brushes. So if you are going to use one of those containers with brush cleaning soap in, just be a little bit careful that you don't buy the gritty one. I haven't got one, so I can't actually show it to you. I'm a cheapskate. I use what I've got in the house. I don't buy all these special products. This is perfectly good. I know some people who use baby shampoo, and I see nothing wrong in that. If it's okay for baby hair, it's okay for brushes. Now let me give you an idea of what you can do when you're travelling. When you're travelling, you want to be able to contain your brushes so you know where they are and they're being cared for. So you can have a brush tube which is made of plastic, and when you pop your brushes into there, you can tell I'm right-handed, can't you? You pop your brushes into there and you put the end on, and you set off on your holiday. Now, if these are in your rucksack, over which you have total control, you can keep the brush in an upright position so that the hairs of the brush don't get damaged. But if you're putting your brushes into your suitcase and you're leaving them in the gentle and ever-caring hands of the baggage handlers at the airport, your brushes are going to do all sorts of somersaults. They're going to be this way up, they're going to be that way up, they're going to be rattled around in the case, and the chances are, for your 5-hour trip, your brushes are going to be standing in your case like that. No, that isn't going to do them any good whatsoever. So these containers are actually great if you can have control over which way up they are. If they're out of your control and they're being thrown around all over the place, I suggest you don't use these. Okay, so what could you use? Well, I travel a lot with my brushes, and this is what I use. Let's take my brushes out. This is just a little folded container that has elastic pieces here where you can tuck your brush in. You can tuck it through both of them actually to really hold it securely. Put all your brushes in there and then you zip it up, and this can be thrown around all over the place and your brushes are absolutely fine. There's nothing touching the hairs, there's nothing to bang up against them like there would be if they were rattling around in this. So for travelling, this is probably one of the better options. As I say, I only ever use this when I'm travelling. It's donkey's years old and it's really, really done me well. So you zip it up, you can see how old it is, the zip is a bit, and there it is. The nice thing about this particular one is that it's very light. Some of them are quite thick and heavy, and if you've got a lot of brushes, yeah, you need one of those, especially if you've got oil painting brushes or acrylic brushes. But for watercolour brushes, this little one is absolutely ideal. Another thing that you can do when you're travelling is use travel brushes. These are brushes that are in a little container, and you just pull them apart, she says, and you put that into the handle, and there you go. And they come in round, and they come in flat, and they come in all different sizes, big, small, whatever. So these are actually wonderful for travelling. I take these with me everywhere. Yes, I take my other brushes if I'm doing demonstrations and things, but just when I'm going on holiday, excuse me, if I'm going on holiday, I usually just take these, because there is no weight to that whatsoever, and you can pop it in your pocket. And the baggage handlers at the airport can't get at that one either. Have you seen what some of the baggage handlers do to the cases? I know sometimes they have no option, but you know, you have to use a bit of common sense when you're packing. So I would never ever put one of these into my suitcase. This was a little bit different to most of my videos, but I thought it was an important one to make. Remember, when you're drying your brushes, don't leave them in the upright position, or the water drains back into the handle and begins to rot the wood. And also, don't leave them sitting in water for any length of time. It doesn't do them any good whatsoever. If this video has been useful for you, then consider clicking that subscribe button and the little bell icon, because that lets you know when I upload another video for you. If you've enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Remember, there is an artist in everyone. Goodbye for now.